and welcome to this fresh new episode of DynamicCISO Talk Show. That is where we get both national and international experts on cybersecurity to talk about various contemporary issues that are important, vital, critical for the professionals in the cybersecurity domain. Today, I have a very special guest. He sits overseas, but he's a native Indian. He's a native Gujarati. But before I introduce him, let me just introduce the topic that we are going to talk about. So breaches are now common occurrences. Organizations of all genre have to live with those breaches. However, breaching an organization is perhaps just the first step of a cyber attack. And all the steps from recon to exfiltration, known as a cyber attack kill chain, then create a lethal impact on an organization. The average execution of all steps of a cyber kill chain is an average of about 200 odd days, if I'm not wrong. Every threat hunter's primary job is to actually crack and break this kill chain by identifying the weak signals or artifacts emitted by a hidden threat. But all of this is not as easy as I am speaking about. To talk about the modern day cyber kill chain, the impact of that on an organization's business, future and reputation, methods of defense, and many other related topics, we have got today a very special guest all the way from Melbourne, Australia, a native Indian, whose life motto is with great power comes great responsibility, for whom becoming a cybersecurity professional was a natural career choice to make. A person who has spent over 20 years in this domain and is still passionate about what he does, and he even now enjoys going to work every day. He has also recently co-authored a book which is titled Threat Hunting in the Cloud, Defending AWS, Azure, and Other Cloud Platforms Against Cyber Attack, along with his co-authors Chris Peiris and Binil Pillai. Excuse me. Let me now welcome Abbas Kudrati, who works as the Chief Cybersecurity Advisor, APAC for Microsoft. Hello and welcome to the show, Abbas.
Thank you, Rahul. Namaskar, and thank you for having me on your show. It's really a pleasure to be here with you and talking to you about threat hunting, especially, which is one of the passionate area and topic close to my heart.
Absolutely, and we are all ears listening to your experiences, your solutioning, and also about the book. I mean, tell us something about your passion as a cybersecurity professional and what inspired you to co-author this book.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a long story actually. I have been started my career as an IT professional. Typically 22 years back, if you talk about, there was nothing called cyber or security as such. Everything was just IT, plain vanilla. Network, novel network, Unix, and our Windows NT and Windows 3.5 during those days. So that's where I started having a passion about IT and breaking and cracking things, fixing printers and fixing servers and installing Windows NT operating system. But one fine day, one of my server was hacked where I was working in Hyderabad during those days. And one of the file servers was taken over by a hacker. And I realized that I think there is something missing in my career. I am good in creating the network and managing it, but I don't know how to secure it. So that's where it triggered my passion. Okay, I should learn about security, enough of managing and creating things. I need to know how hackers hack and how I can defend against those hackers. So that's where curiosity took place, and I moved my career and became an ethical hacker and started working for companies like KPMG and EY during those days. And after pen tester, started learning about the risk management. So when I was doing pen testing part, the obvious choice was how do we hunt for the threat, as a pen tester, we know, okay, our job is to crack a system or identify the vulnerabilities and report those vulnerabilities to the CISOs or the IT head who are managing and monitoring those network. And uh, 15 years back, the evolution started from firewall monitoring and log analysis and started taking place something we call security operation. So that was the first thing people was talking about. Okay, you have a good team of IT, you have a network, you are monitoring the logs mostly from troubleshooting, but you're not doing monitoring of log from the analysis point of view. What's going around from security? Are you getting a DDoS attack, or is somebody trying to attack your identities? Are you getting a brute force attack? So people thought, okay, the next evolution is security operations center. Let's implement SIM. We talk about old SIMs such as ArcSight 15, 20 years back, and then many other players came into the market, including Symantec and McAfee and Trend Micro and many other players started talking about. So the next phase of moving from SOC or a security monitoring system is very reactive. So when you operate a SOC, it's very reactive in nature. You get the logs into your security operations center systems, you have a SIM solution, you go and analyze and try to correlate the data. But everything is very, very reactive. Nothing is proactive. So next phase came today that because of such an increase in cyber attack, we are seeing almost 1,700 companies being targeted against ransomware on a daily basis. We are seeing 2,000 plus password spray attacks on a daily basis on the identities. So the threats are very, very, very much real, and it's continuously increasing. And on the other side, if you know how the threat attackers, the adversaries, how they act, they have their own supply chain, they have their own economy. They work in a very collaborative manner. Somebody, you can go and buy a ransomware as a kit. We call it RAS, ransomware as a service. We think with that ransomware as a service, it comes with a service level package as well. If it works, all good. If it doesn't work, you get your money back. And if you want help in terms of attacking a company, then they have a service level model in terms of profit sharing. That, okay, you buy the kit from one country, you go, somebody will help you in deploying the kit or targeting the attacks. Third party will come and help you in terms of making sure that you are successful. Fourth party will come and help you in exfiltrating the data. Then the next party will come and help you in selling the data in the market. And of course, there is a party who will help you negotiating the terms with the compromised company so that you can have a better negotiation. So these threats are real. And as you said correctly, Rahul, initially, that it takes almost 200 days to identify a threat within the organization. So how can you do something proactive to reduce that particular gap? You don't want to wait 200 days until the adversaries are there. An only way to identify that you have an adversary already present in your company is to think about an assume breach mindset. That you cannot, it's not if, it's when. So you have to have an assume breach mindset, thinking that I'm already under attack. There is adversaries already in my company. You have to think from that mindset. And one of the one of the way you can have that thinking mindset is to be proactive. So proactively, you have to start hunting in your environment. That's where the threat hunting idea came into place, that organizations are now having the security operations center on-premise. Now they are moving to the cloud environment, and the cloud adoption is continuously increasing across the world, across the Asia, across the India as well. So what they are facing challenge in terms of, yes, okay, I understood, I have a SOC. Okay, I'm doing the threat hunting on the on-premises, but now I'm having a huge adoption of cloud-based resources, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. So I really need to think about how I can do threat hunting on a multi-cloud and a hybrid environment. That triggered myself and my co-author that, okay, I think we have a gap in the market. There are lots of disjoint information on the internet, but we need to have something consolidated so people can read and think about how they can have a proactive proactive threat hunting capabilities on a multi-cloud or a hybrid scenario. That's where the book came into the play.
No, I must say that you have very beautifully explained not only your journey from being a typical IT pro to a very specialized threat hunter and a security pro. And I definitely agree with you when you say that our approach of most of security professionals in their SOC environments has been reactive. And this phrase that you used, that we have to wear this attitude of assume breach mindset. I mean, we have to work with that mindset that there is a breach already happening in the organization, and how can we proactively hunt for those breaches? And that's what is threat hunting. That's what threat hunting is all about. And extending the conversation beyond just conventional systems now, more into the cloud environment and how important it is to secure the multi-cloud and hybrid cloud environments through proactive threat hunting. I mean, this is a conversation in itself, which can go on and on. However, when we talk about effective threat hunting, I would assume that this is fairly new phenomenon in terms of our conversations and in terms of our practices in the information security domain. So how to build an effective threat hunting program in the cloud environment is my question.
You correct, Rahul Sabu. When you said, yeah, it's a new phenomenon, people are now moving from just having a traditional SOC or a SIEM environment, and now there are conversation. I have seen CISOs are talking about either leveraging third-party services from Big Four consulting companies and many other service provider to do something like red teaming and blue teaming. It's not a threat hunting, but it is also a kind of a proactive service to first doing an assessment in terms of, let's have a red team exercise done to check our posture. Pen testing is one area still going on. People are still doing it to identify the vulnerabilities, but can those vulnerabilities be exploited not only from the technology point of view, but also process and a people side of it? That's where the red team and a blue team comes into play. Red team job is to go and attack or behave like an ethical attacker to get a maximum advantage of, and also objective is exfiltrate the data to prove that attackers can also do it. And the flip side, now you need to have somebody in your blue team who acts as a defender. Now, blue team also could be your hunters, because their job is to make sure that red team has been successful, if at all, and they're roaming around in the network to identify all the resources and data and everything they can. So now blue team's job is to go and hunt and identify what's going around in the network, right? So the question comes to it, how or what do you need to build that kind of capabilities within the environment? First of all, do you have the basic infrastructure in place? Do you have the people, process, technology from security operation point of view? If you're not doing the analysis of logs, then you cannot straight away jump into the threat hunting, because threat hunting is a next level of maturity within your security operation services, right? If that's not in place, you just can't have a threat hunting. You can still have it as a one-off exercise. You can call somebody as an external party who will come and hunt for you and look for you. If found anything, all good. Nothing, they give you a clean sheet report and go away. But that's kind of a reactive again and a one-off exercise, right? But if you already have a practice, then let's look for what kind of threats do I have within my environment. Now, threats differ country to country. Threats differ business to business. Threats differ from industry to industry as well.
True.
You as a bank, hypothetically, if you are working in a bank, your threats are different. If you are a bank in India, again, your threats are different as compared to the bank in Australia. Because there are lots of nation attack vectors and nation state attackers who are targeting a certain region. That reminds me that last year, when Microsoft was doing analysis of the threat signals across the world, because we collect almost 8 trillion signals on a daily basis, we noticed that drive-by download is one of the attack pattern, was very high in Singapore, India, and Hong Kong. And the only reason it was very high in these three countries, because these three are the financial hub in Asia. They have the maximum number of banking institutes. And drive-by download threat was specifically crafted for this country so that the attackers can steal the banking details and credit card details and banking login details from these countries. So my point is threats differ from country to country, and industry to industry. So going back to I'm giving a long answer to your question because I want the audience to understand the context. You have to create the hypothesis. That's the first step in a threat hunting practice. You have to create the hypothesis based on the industry you are, based on the geographical you are, and based on the data what you have. So go find your crown jewels. Go find what are the attack vectors from which places attackers can come in, and look at what industry type of attacks and what are the attack factors in that particular country. And then you build up those hypotheses and create the use cases or hunting queries. Say, okay, these are my crown jewels. I want to protect them. These are the logs I'm collecting from my on-premise AD, Azure Active Directory, firewall, whatever logs you have, DLP logs and everything else what you have. And now I want to create, and of course, I need a threat hunting feed. Could be paid, or it could be free, or could be natively available. That was one of the objective of my book, that there are native capabilities available from multiple cloud service provider. We talked about Azure, we talked about AWS and many other cloud service provider as a part of my book. They have that native capability, but they may not be good enough because, as I said, threats are very specific to country and industry as well. So you might need to collect and subscribe to the specific industrial threat feed. For example, FSISEC, Financial Services ISEC Group, they provide you threat hunting feed specifically for financial services. So you might have to subscribe that feed and have it within your process and try to hunt proactively. And I will talk, maybe you might have a next question for me, but I will stop there and I will tell you what needs to be done as a next step.
Sure. I mean, this conversation, as I said, can go on. And I would like this conversation to be as long as we can, keeping in mind the attention span of the listeners. However, let me go back to the title of the book. I mean, you explained it very well about blue teaming, red teaming, how proactively you can look for threats and then remediate them. The title of the book is very intriguing and it cuts across all key cloud platforms. So my question is, and I can sound very naive by asking so, but I still have to ask. So do distinct cloud platforms have distinct threats as well? Or are the threats and vulnerabilities common across all cloud platforms? And how does one effectively use principles of threat hunting to secure this multi-cloud environment?
Yeah, as I said, threats are specific to industry and specific to geography, right? Irrespective of what cloud service provider you use. Of course, there is an element of those services as well. Depends upon which cloud service provider has a bigger market share. How many customers are using which cloud services. And what are the various weaknesses, if at all, some zero-day attack been identified by attackers to that. So I will not touch upon which cloud services are secure or unsecure and why they have been targeted. It's altogether a different domain. Everybody is targeted, irrespective of if you are a small, big, or black or white. You are being targeted continuously, irrespective of what cloud provider you use or anything. Only thing it is difference is what kind of data you have and what exposure you have. So it is depending upon that mostly.
Okay, so talk a little about the multi-cloud threat hunting framework, such as threat hunting maturity model, zero trust computing model, human elements of threat hunting, and how threat hunting differs from the alerts and SOC monitoring that we do.
Sure. See, there are not many actually. There are two frameworks, especially we talk about when somebody wants to do threat hunting or align their processes. You may have heard of a framework called MITRE ATT&CK framework.
Yes,
that's a very famous framework where it talks about all the various skill chain. In terms of reconciliations, or in terms of privilege escalations, or in terms of many other kill chain they have. So MITRE ATT&CK kill chain. Another one is the CTI, which is a threat framework. It is mostly a European framework. It is still okay, but not many people know about it. The most famous one is a MITRE ATT&CK. So every threat hunter or a SOC analyst, they would really try to map their process against this framework. And that's what we have also tried to do it in our book, aligning two things. One is NIST cybersecurity framework, which gives us a very good model in terms of processes, in terms of protect, detect, respond, recover. There are 4 pillars of cybersecurity framework from NIST. We align that 4 domains with MITRE ATT&CK kill chain. So one, NIST CSF gives us a maturity model to assess where we are in our cybersecurity practice. Attack kill chain helps me in terms of identifying the attack or the threats against each of the kill chain. So that's how we have blended these two process and technique together to create an effective model for doing the threat hunting. And I already covered in terms of alert and all. You should have a basic SOC in place. You should be ingesting the correct amount of logs and alerts in your environment so that you can create that kind of you can call it automation playbook or a run book or a notebook. There are many different definitions of what it is. But at the end of the day, it's nothing but creating an automated script to go and hunt for a specific IOC, which is indicator of compromise. You have to create that indicator of compromise based on the various threats what you have, which you can get it from your threat feed, or which is natively available in multiple tools, Microsoft Azure, XDR or EDR solution, Microsoft Defender, Microsoft Sentinel, which is our cloud native SIEM, Microsoft Azure Security Center or Microsoft Defender for server. There are lots of tools which has this native capability of for going and doing a hunting using a query language called Custos query language. Similarly, AWS also has their own tools like Guardrail and many others, which also can be used in the AWS environment to go and hunt for it. And you can create a framework to go and hunt in multi-environment. Could be on-premises, could be Microsoft, could be Azure, using the same process, NIST CSF, MITRE ATT&CK kill chain, using the query language, identifying the IOCs, and look for those hunt proactively in your environment. And using automation as well, because that's something is the next step. After you've done the initial process, you need to automate things so you don't burden your analyst for doing query manually. Once you create the script, automatically go and hunt, get the results, do an analysis of that.
Great. So, I have a very kind of slightly different question here, and that is about the capabilities within an organization. So, assuming that threat hunting is the next step for modern SOCs, I would also safely assume that there are certain types of organizations like banking, like financial services, like telcos, large IT companies which have the capability and skills of handling this. However, there is a fairly large chunk of organizations which do not have the capabilities, do not have the wherewithals and the budget for such a modern aspect of security operations.
Yep.
So, what is the best method for them to adopt when it comes to threat hunting?
Yep. 2 or 3 ways you can do it. And I get it very well, because we have a huge shortage of, first of all, skill set. So many open positions in the market, and we are not able to find the good candidate. So it's always going to be there. Second, countries like India and many other Asian countries, they have a pressure of budget as well. Not everyone have an unlimited pocket of budget like big companies and big banks and telcos to implement and have a practice in-house. So that's always going to be a challenge. And third thing is, threats are continuously changing. Attacks are continuously changing. So how are you going to keep up when you don't have these 2 things, budget and the people in your side? That is where you can take 2 best approach. One, this is where the managed security service providers comes into play. And you don't have to go for a big managed service provider who can have a basic capabilities, who can first create a model for you, take the logs from you and do the analysis and do the native threat hunting practice within their own SOC. Because since they are managed service provider, they do it for multiple companies within their environment, so they can even monitor for you as well if you have outsourced it to them. Second approach, if you already have a basic practice within your environment, you have a security operations center, managing, look at what are the native capabilities which is already available as a part of the tool. You may not have to go buy a heavy technology to support you this new initiative. You need to do two things. First, make sure that your employee who are already existing employee, you can upskill them with the existing tools and technology what you have, so they know the basic fundamentals of what is threat hunting, why you have to do it. Second thing, go and look for the product which already have a native capability. And I gave you example of Microsoft, right? Defender, Azure Security Center, and Sentinel. These are the combination of these three tools. We call it XDR, which is the next phase of your EDR, which is endpoint detection and response. This is now extended detection and remediation process, XDR. Yeah. They already have that hunting capability inbuilt into the product. So you don't need to go and buy any other things. If you know the basic stuff, you understand the process, what are you doing, why are you doing it? They are already built-in capabilities. You just go and start executing those things and automate as much as possible. You don't need to hire another 10 people out of 5 people just for doing proactive hunting. Your existing team can do it with the help of a little bit of automations and orchestration, which is the next phase of creating a notebook and a run book. Automatically, it will go and hunt for you every day proactively and give you results, and you can analyze it. So these are the two best approaches in my opinion.
Yeah, so that was actually my final question. If we talk of the future of threat hunting, with the visible advances in technologies like AI, machine learning, quantum computing, and the proliferation of the IoT devices as well. So where do you see this whole momentum shifting and moving in the future?
Yeah, so attackers are getting smarter day by day. They are using machine learning and AI, and maybe God knows in future they might use quantum computing as well for doing attacks towards your company. So it is as well for us also to go and start using this technology or work with technology vendors such as Microsoft, AWS, and Google, because they have that kind of bandwidth and capability to create frameworks and provide you that kind of muscle power within your own SOC to leverage those AI and ML in your environment as well. So again, giving back to the example that for threat hunting, yes, you to start small in terms of having a basic knowledge and starting doing something manually. But the only way to scale is to start leveraging their machine learning and AI algorithm, which comes to you on your side as a powerful tools to combat these kind of attacks. So leverage automated notebook, which is you can bring your own machine learning library and use it in your own Azure Sentinel as a SIM to create that kind of an automation. In case you have a large amount of data and the logs which you're collecting, it is humanly impossible to do it manually. You have to use automation on your side, and which is the future. So learning those query language, implementing those machine learning behavior into your environment, leveraging partners such as Microsoft and any other big cloud service provider to help you be more proactive and be ready for the futuristic attack as well, to build this kind of practice in your environment.
I mean, I can't agree more, because there is no other way to reconcile the need for threat hunting with the kind of volume of data that we have without the help of machine assistance or quantum computing. Parting last question, for example, I mean, we agree that more and more organizations are now forced, I'm using this word quote unquote, forced to adopt threat hunting to detect the lethal and sophisticated adversaries. And if we look at some of the past high profile breaches like SolarWinds, where the attackers were able to very easily evade the existing defense for months. what is your advice to the CISOs? You have been using this term native capabilities and things that exist. I mean, how can they maximize the use of those capabilities?
Absolutely. I want to pitch in a new buzzword to answer that, called zero trust.
Sure. Sure.
So you have to start thinking from a zero trust principle, which is number one principle is trust no one, verify everyone, or verify explicitly. When you want to implement better security, you have to think of a zero trust network architecture framework as such, in which always you will verify each and every signal which comes into your environment, irrespective if they are within your behind the company firewall in your physical network, or working from remotely, irrespective from any other location or any other device. Second principle you have to implement is least privilege. That means you have to eliminate all the administrators from your environment and provide access based on need to know, need to do basis. And the third principle, which I touched upon earlier, assume breach. You have to have a layered defense in your environment. If first control fails, second control has to comply. That way you can reduce the attack blast surface. That's what is one of the best mitigation strategy in case of a SolarWinds kind of a situation, where if you had a micro segmented your network, which is one of the requirement of a zero trust, you would have been able to consolidate or contain the threat into one particular area. And since you are already building up a practice of a zero threat hunting on top of it, it can really add and complement together, having a good zero trust network architecture framework, having a proactive capabilities into their environment. It's a win-win situation for any kind of a CISO. And Rahul Sab, I want to iterate one more point.
Sure.
I'm writing a second book on a zero trust. Right now, already I'm halfway through that particular book, which will be released in April or May, hopefully. Fingers crossed. So hopefully we should talk about this topic in detail sometime in May, June.
Oh yes. So that gives me the chance to rope you in once again when the book is launched. And thank you, Abbas, for talking to us. It was really a great conversation with you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.